From fiery trails over the desert to glowing objects hovering over cities without a single sound, this compilation gathers some of the strangest and most discussed footages on the topic of unidentified flying objects. I wish you a pleasant viewing. A triangular object was noticed in the sky, which moved measuredly and almost too correctly. At each of its corners burned a bright fire, and the blinking repeated in a perfectly identical sequence. The witnesses emphasized that the whole shape looked too symmetrical for a random coincidence and too precise for an ordinary flying machine. But the main thing is the complete absence of noise and a visible trail. Later, a check of the routes showed that neither civilian nor military airplanes passed there at that time. Interestingly, a similar light scheme was observed in a neighboring area several weeks earlier, and this only strengthened the feeling of a repeating phenomenon. On the 18th of October 2025, workers in the Pilbara Desert in Western Australia discovered a large burnt object near a remote road. It lay approximately 30 kilometers from the town of Newman, and at first glance looked as if it did not come from the surface of the earth. The dark, soot-covered structure caused such serious alarm that emergency services were immediately sent to the site. The Western Australia Police, the Australian Space Agency, and rescue departments participated in the investigation. Later, it became known that the object is made of carbon fiber, similar to the materials of rocket tanks. The assumption about space debris sounds the most probable, but it was never definitively identified. An ordinary quiet street, evening, a residential area, and suddenly, a glowing object appears over the houses, which does not change its position for too long. The couple who noticed it at first simply do not understand what is happening. A light source with changing shades hangs in the sky. The lights blink softly and at the same time do not tremble, do not shift, and do not behave like familiar aviation. Everything looks as if something just froze over the house. After some time, the object disappears just as calmly. Later, those who discussed the recording noted, holding such immobility in the open sky without sound and visible support is extremely unusual. On a recording from Mexico from the 13th of December 2020, a smooth round object is visible, which silently hovers over the terrain and then begins to slowly descend towards the forest. What hooked the viewers the most was not the flight itself, but the change of shades. Soft blue, green, and red shimmers go across the surface without any understandable light source. The object moves smoothly, without smoke, without noise, and without signs of thrust. Those who analyzed the video noted that the descent looks almost controlled. And at that moment, when the object hides behind the trees, the recording cuts off, leaving behind only a feeling of incompleteness. During a quiet evening, one eyewitness noticed a huge V-shaped object in the sky. It moved smoothly and very quietly, without visible engines, propellers, or wings. People were especially struck by how this bulky-looking structure literally glided through the air, as if the resistance of the environment did not exist for it at all. The witness described the movement as too smooth, almost unreal. Skeptics suggested that this could be an experimental development, but even they admitted, in such footages, there is something that stands out from the familiar logic of modern aviation. On the 17th of March 2025, not far from the Gulf of Mexico, it was possible to film a faint object that was descending very quickly from the sky. On the recording, a short flash is noticeable at first, and then something goes down almost vertically, and in a matter of seconds, disappears at the waterline. Eyewitnesses said that they noticed a light smoke, and then complete silence. Neither a splash, nor debris, nor any traces. Later, a version about a meteor fragment sounded, but the trajectory and speed seemed to many too unusual for an ordinary entry into the atmosphere. A family in Japan filmed a short TikTok video, which very quickly began to spread across social networks. Everything happened right from the window of an apartment. a large round object hung in the sky, maintaining almost complete immobility. In the background, the voices of people trying to understand what they are even seeing are heard. The object itself practically does not shift, and exactly this is what is the most confusing. It hangs long enough for viewers to start arguing whether this is a real recording or a successfully made digital fake. In the Shunyi district in Beijing, a video appeared that quickly became one of the most discussed Chinese unidentified flying object videos. It was filmed by the singer Tang Xiao, known from the show Supergirl. Alarmed voices are heard on the recording. People are asking in whispers what is happening, and asking each other to speak quieter, while a huge object hangs over them. It looks motionless, surrounded by haze, without noticeable wings, and without any sound. Later, analysts tried to explain what was seen as a rare optical illusion caused by cloud layers. But this version did not convince many, and exactly for this reason, the video is still considered one of the most mysterious in China. On the 1st of June, 2025, in Ho Chi Minh City, also known as Saigon, during a thunderstorm, it was possible to film an especially unusual phenomenon. Every lightning strike for a fraction of a second illuminated a round object, motionlessly hovering over the clouds. Against the background of the bad weather, its shape was read surprisingly clearly, a smooth, rounded silhouette that was not blown away by the wind and was not thrown from side to side. The author of the recording held the camera long enough so that the silhouette could be examined immediately in several flashes. In January 2020, an unusual cylindrical object appeared over the mountains. At first, it seemed to hover, and then, as soon as the operator zoomed in the image, it sharply went behind the ridge, as if avoiding attention. But the story did not end there. After a short time, the object appeared again and began to slowly descend, maintaining the same strange smoothness of movement. Exactly this calm, controlled behavior convinced many that there was something in the frame completely unlike ordinary aviation. One night over Las Vegas, a man filming the city skyline noticed strange lights above the clouds. At first, they seemed like an ordinary reflection, but then they began to fold into a straight line and flicker in a repeating rhythm, similar to a signal. The sequence looked almost like a code, 3 long flashes, then 2 short ones. And as if that was not enough, in the same week, pilots in the nearby airspace reported incomprehensible interference in radio communication. Officially, these events were not linked to each other, but the coincidence seemed too exact to many. Because of this, the episode received the reputation of one of the creepiest. On the video filmed in a crowded cafe with an open area, it is visible how a motionless object hangs over the zone with the tables. Below it, lights flicker dimly, and it itself holds the position for several minutes, after which it simply goes up and disappears. The witnesses claimed that they did not hear either the noise of an engine or any characteristic sound that would help to take the object for a drone. Later, local aviation services supposedly confirmed that no registered air activity was observed in that area at that moment. Exactly because of this, the video is often cited as an example of how such cases happen right in crowded places and still remain unanswered. Late in the evening, a couple was driving home when something dark with a single dim light on top appeared over the road. At first, the people simply slowed down out of curiosity, but very quickly this feeling was replaced by tension. The object moved nearby almost intentionally, as if adjusting to the speed of the car. It did not resemble a drone, a helicopter, or any familiar machinery. Everything happening looked too quiet and too conscious. After a few tense seconds, the mysterious silhouette smoothly rose and went into the night sky, and the people in the car remained without an answer to the main question. What exactly was accompanying them? Eyewitnesses told about a large object motionlessly hovering in the open sky. But they were struck not only by the sizes. The surface of the apparatus looked like an engineering structure. Panels, lines, joints, almost like satellite technology or complex modules. The most unusual thing surfaced later. Despite the fact that the object remained visible for several minutes, Local radars seemed not to notice it at all. This gap between what the people saw and what the surveillance systems did not see gave rise to a new wave of disputes. If the apparatus was real, how could such a large thing literally fall out of the familiar tracking means? Recently over Bangkok in Thailand, an object was noticed, the shape of which instantly distinguished it among all the typical strange lights. It looked like a clear rectangular or box-shaped silhouette hovering high above the city. There was nothing in it that would resemble a sphere, a drone, or a balloon. Several videos filmed from different points showed one and the same thing: a motionless object with smooth edges, as if frozen in the air. The story quickly brought back the old question to the network: why are there more and more such videos? And why are many of them so difficult to explain with something familiar? In September 2003, vacationers near the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa saw a strange glow over the shore. The object simply hung in the sky, against the background of the clouds, not moving and not changing altitude. Tourists and local residents began to film what was happening, not understanding what they had encountered. In the footages, a silhouette is distinguishable, reminiscent of a classic saucer, hovering over the shoreline. After several minutes, the object disappeared just as suddenly as it appeared. And although many years have already passed, no convincing explanation for this observation has ever been offered. On one of the fresh Chinese videos, a bright white object is visible, hovering high over a mountain ridge. It almost does not move for several minutes, and then begins to slowly go to the side, maintaining the same clarity and stability. On the network, it was quickly dubbed the White Wanderer or the White Spacer. People were especially struck by how evenly and confidently it held itself in the air, without drift, without the characteristic behavior of balloons, without the typical signs of a drone. On the 1st of February 2021, residents of Paraíba in Brazil noticed an elongated metallic cigar-shaped object in the clouds. It walked in a straight line, calmly and silently, as if it was moving not through the air, but through the void. Eyewitnesses said that by the manner of flight it was not similar either to an airplane or to any other familiar apparatus. There were no jerks, course corrections, or signs of instability in it, only smooth, confident movement. Over Dayton, state of Ohio, a strange object was noticed, which in the videos looked too bright and too stable to be written off as a random light in the sky. The story received additional resonance when a second video appeared on the network, filmed from another point and showing the same object from a different angle. Later, it was mentioned that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration observed it with the help of the James Webb Telescope and identified it as an interstellar guest, an object that came from outside the solar system. The craziest detail in the whole story sounds almost unbelievable. Just very recently, it was located in deep space, and now it supposedly ended up already within the limits of the earthly sky. Long before the era of 8,000 resolution, neural networks, and flawless digital graphics, one tourist in Spain filmed a round-shaped object slowly floating over a mountain ridge. The film was far from ideal, but later specialists declared that they did not find traces of a fake on the recording. For that time, this already sounded impressive. The filming location is also interesting. The area is located next to one of the oldest meteorite zones of the country, where unusual magnetic deviations are still recorded. Whether this is connected to each other, no one knows. But the very thought that some territories seemingly attract strange phenomena only strengthens the atmosphere of this story. The case that occurred in Turkey 17 years ago, many still call one of the strongest video proofs on the topic of unidentified flying objects. In the footages, a large oval object of a metallic shade is visible, hovering in the night sky. Then a whole series of strange observations occurred in the northwest of the country, and this video became part of that chain of events. The filming was studied not only by enthusiasts, but also by specialists. However, no one was able to confidently call it a fake. Disputes around the video do not subside until now, and the recording itself with each year only fits more tightly into the history of the most famous unidentified flying object cases. During an evening observation of the sky, the camera recorded an object of perfect triangular shape. It hung absolutely silently, and along its edges, dim purple lights flickered, lighting up at equal intervals and emphasizing the clear geometry. Unlike airplanes, the object did not bank, did not change direction, and did not show any signs of flight in the familiar sense. It simply remained in place, as if glued to the dark background of the sky. In the Dominican Republic, local residents were seriously frightened after a report of a fall of a large metallic object in a remote area. According to the words of eyewitnesses, at first a dull thud sounded, and only then in the area of the fall did they notice smoke and small pockets of fire. The surface of the find looked strange, uneven, in places as if welded by hand and heavily burned, completely unlike the casing of an ordinary airplane. Official services quickly arrived at the site, but no intelligible details were ever voiced. Residents of the suburbs of Phoenix, state of Arizona, froze when a bright object appeared in the night sky, from which glowing spheres seemingly began to separate. The filming dates back to the 19th of August, 2025, approximately 10:42 in the evening. The small lights diverged in different directions slowly and calmly, and the main light source at the same time did not change position at all. People went out of their houses, filmed what was happening from their porches, and tried to understand what exactly they were looking at. Everything lasted a matter of minutes, but this turned out to be enough for the video to scatter across the network and cause a new wave of conversations about the unexplained. A family resting by the river accidentally filmed a video that many still call one of the most disturbing. At the edge of the forest, they noticed something similar to a massive metallic apparatus, as if it had suffered a crash. A light smoke rose from the object, and when the people came closer, it became clear that the dimensions of the find are much larger than any machinery familiar to them. The strangest thing? The recording cuts off exactly at that moment, when they almost approached the site. A few hours later, the video began to be deleted from platforms, and no official messages about what happened ever appeared. A military pilot performing a flight in the area of San Clemente Island off the coast of California noticed a silvery disc-shaped object over the water. It did not look large, but it moved so fast that without difficulty, it kept close to the Fighter 22 Raptor, one of the most technological fighter jets of the United States. According to the words of those who discussed these footages, the object was not similar either to a rocket or to a drone. And then the strangest thing happened. The mysterious disc suddenly accelerated, bypassed the airplane, and simply disappeared from the field of view. And exactly this sharp, almost impossible maneuverability still makes the episode one of the most discussed. A viral video from TikTok showed a find that looked as if it was not covered by sand, but hidden there by time. A man stumbled upon an object reminiscent of a flying saucer, almost halfway gone into the soil. On the cracked surface, internal layers, wires, and metallic elements were visible, because of which the thing more closely resembled a real mechanism than a decoration. The author of the video walked around the object from all sides and filmed it up close, as if purposefully showing there are no editing splices nor obvious digital effects here. After publication, the network split into two camps. Some immediately shouted about a prank. Others saw in the find a trace of something truly unknown. One of the strangest videos ever appearing on the network is filmed in such poor quality that from this it only becomes more disturbing. In the frame, a dim disc-shaped object is visible, hovering over an empty field. Its shape and movement look clearly enough to exclude a random glare or interference. But the main shock is caused not by them, but by the dark silhouettes that seemingly begin to slowly descend from below, moving synchronously and almost silently, and then dissolve in the darkness. Not a beam, not a sound, not obvious traces of editing. Exactly because of this frightening detail, the video got into the number of the most discussed. A short video that popped up on the internet showed an object reminiscent of a saucer lying in a snow-covered area somewhere near Russia. Traces were well visible on the snow, as if the apparatus did not simply fall, but for some time slid along the surface before stopping. The video rapidly gained views, but almost immediately began to disappear from major platforms. Not a single department, not a single major mass media officially commented on this story, and exactly this fueled the interest most strongly of all. In the Brazilian city of Contagem, an ordinary evening for a group of students suddenly turned into a reason for discussions across the whole country. At first, they noticed bright lights in the sky and thought that this is an ordinary airplane. But almost immediately it became clear. The blinking scheme does not match any familiar onboard signals. The large object above them moved with an alarming calmness, and the shape of the light group slightly changed, not falling apart and not breaking formation. Eyewitnesses reported a rapid object that crossed the sky, leaving behind a bright, fiery trail. The first thought for the majority was quite ordinary, a meteor or a fragment of a rocket. But the behavior of the object caused doubts. It did not rotate, did not fall apart into pieces, and did not lose control, as it often happens, during entry into the atmosphere. On the contrary, the trajectory looked too even and seemingly deliberate. Later, they said that on that day, neither planned launches nor known re-entries into the atmosphere were recorded, and that means the questions after the appearance of these footages only became more numerous. A night video from Mexico caused heated disputes after an object with several lights arranged in a flawless line from below appeared in the frame. Each of them flashed in one and the same rhythm, creating the feeling not of chaotic glowing, but of a clearly organized system. The author of the video silently held the camera on the horizon, while the object hovered low over the ground. Those who analyzed the recording noted, not a single known type of aviation demonstrates such a synchronous light scheme, with the complete absence of a noticeable structure and noise. A short video filmed on a rural road in Romania became the subject of animated disputes because of one detail. The author asserts that even seconds before the filming, there was nothing in the sky. And then the camera records a dim metallic shape, simply hanging in the air, without sound, without movement, without an understandable explanation. In order to confirm that this is not a trick, the person intentionally shifts the camera to the empty space around, as if showing there are no hidden structures and suspensions here. Residents of Alaska filmed an object that slowly moved across the night sky, but looked completely not like the standard lights of airplanes or drones. The main feature was in the glow. It was as if turning, changing direction softly and very evenly. Despite the distance, the light remained stable, which led to the thought of a larger object than it seemed at first. Local specialists tried to compare the movement with known satellites and natural phenomena, but they did not find an exact match. In the Brazilian city of Curitiba, a camera recorded a saucer-shaped object hovering over the city skyline. It held itself motionlessly, without noise and without the slightest hesitations, and then after several seconds smoothly shifted to the side. Analysts noted that on that night, there were weather conditions under which drones and light objects usually noticeably tremble or are led away by the wind. Here, however, there was nothing of the kind. Exactly this flawless stability is what made the video especially impressive. Viewers were truly struck by the footages on which an unknown object literally rushes just above the surface of the ocean. It goes fast, but at the same time moves not in jerks, but so smoothly, as if gliding along an invisible guide. A metallic reflection and light ripples are visible on the water, as if the object really impacts the surface. And then a sharp maneuver occurs. It suddenly goes down and disappears into the sea. Those who studied the recording did not find obvious signs of editing. And exactly the moment of plunging made the episode even more mysterious. Footages from the Nevada desert caused stormy disputes after appearing on the network. On them, 3 disc-shaped objects are visible, quickly passing through the sky and following them. Fighter 22 fighter jets, seemingly pursuing them. Everything looks coordinated enough that many developed a version about a real military contact with unidentified targets. Of course, there were also those who called the video a visual trick, but supporters of authenticity drew attention to the maneuvers of the airplanes, similar to standard pursuit schemes. Official comments never followed. Therefore, this episode remained one of the most controversial observations over the American airspace. On one of the old videos found on the network, a metallic object is visible, hovering among the trees deep in the forest. The most striking thing is that the video was filmed long before the era of modern digital fakes. At the same time, the footages look surprisingly even and convincing. The object hangs low and motionlessly, without noticeable attachments, shadows from a suspension, or hesitations from the wind. People who disassembled the recording noted that the light and reflections on the object matched the environment well, and such details were very difficult to fake earlier. Exactly for this reason, many still attribute this video to the number of the most convincing early observations. On the 24th of September of this year, a resident of New York filmed a glowing object hovering high over the city skyline. While the camera zoomed in the image, smaller lights began to separate from below, falling or descending in a slow, almost controlled rhythm. Because of the good quality of the recording, to distinguish the shapes was easier than usual, and exactly for this reason, the disputes flared up with new force. Some talked about drones, others about flare lights. Third ones believe that these versions generally do not explain the behavior of the object. Late at night in Houston, an eyewitness filmed a group of glowing lights moving across the sky in a perfect formation. He described them as glowing spheres, flying absolutely silently and gradually dissolving in the distance. The video quickly gained attention on the network, but soon something strange happened. The video disappeared from the platform, and attempts to upload it anew supposedly also encountered deletions. Exactly this gave rise to conversations about possible censorship and interference from the outside. Of course, there are no direct proofs for this. But in such stories, exactly the disappearance of materials often ignites interest more strongly than the footages themselves. Eyewitnesses noticed an object in the sky that moved quietly, evenly, and without any visible signs of thrust. It was not similar to a drone, did not resemble an airplane, and at the same time glided too confidently to be written off as an accident. On the internet, disputes about the origin of the shape and structure immediately began. Some talked about experimental technology, others about something completely different. But the main accent for almost everyone was the same: the silence and precision of movement. In one unspecified city, a passerby noticed a round object hovering right over the street and immediately began to film. The apparatus moved slowly, and under its lower part, green lights softly glowed, building an even, almost hypnotic rhythm. The object did not twitch, did not swing, and did not sharply change direction, as it often happens with drones. On the contrary, its movement looked very smooth and almost deliberately controlled. Later, it was asserted that according to aviation logs, nothing was passing in this area at that moment. In San Bernardino, California, people saw something in the smoke-filled sky that was difficult to compare with even any familiar object. The silhouette seemingly glowed at the expense of the city lights from below, and at some moments, generally began to resemble a huge squid floating through the air. Yes, experts reminded that smoke and the veil from fires are capable of distorting perspective. But even with this reservation, the viewers were confused by the stability of the movement and the overall shape of the object. It looked too solid and too controlled for everything to be reduced only to the play of light and atmosphere. One of the recent videos attracted huge attention thanks to an object hovering high over the horizon. Its lights ran across the smooth surface in such a way that to many, this reminded of windows or light sections of some apparatus. Viewers noted that the object held the position too confidently. It did not drift and did not dissolve, as it happens with reflections or atmospheric effects. analysts never came to a unified conclusion, whether these lights were a play of the environment or a part of a real mechanism. In the Brazilian city of Piraúna, state of Goiás, local residents discovered strange round patterns on massive stones. Each mark was even, symmetrical, and did not resemble either ordinary erosion or the work of a known tool. The find quickly dispersed across the network, and almost immediately, versions appeared that this could be a trace of a certain landing or contact with an unknown object. Geologists could not confidently explain the origin of the drawings, because of which the story hung somewhere between a rare, natural phenomenon and yet another mystery without an answer. According to reports, the recording was made back in 1996, not far from Area 51 in Nevada. On it, a white oval object rapidly falls to the ground, and at first it seems as if this is simply a fragment. But a moment before the impact, it unexpectedly changes trajectory, as if trying to level out, then bounces off, remains intact, and hides in a cloud of dust. Already this would look unusual, but the story continues. Not far away in one of the few forested zones next to the base, a tourist filmed a pale, thin creature among the trees with disproportionately long limbs, a large head, and completely dark eyes. Later, another video with a similar figure surfaced in the same area. And although many years have passed, supporters of this version are still confident. Exactly that crash became the moment after which the history around these places ceased to be simply a legend. Write in the comments everything you think about this matter, and subscribe to the Top Facts channel for compilations of the most incredible facts and videos from all over the internet. Thank you for viewing, and right now watch the previous incredible episodes, which have already appeared on your screen.